When I bought my first home, I was just 27. It had taken years of saving to get there, and though it was a modest little house, I was proud. Moving in, however, was a bigger adjustment than I'd anticipated. I'd always lived with my family, parents, 3 siblings and 2 dogs. Our house had been a lively, chaotic place. By comparison, this house was silent, oppressively silent. The quiet was the hardest part of the transition, and there were nights when I genuinely wondered if I'd made a mistake. Anyone who's lived alone after years of noise and company probably knows what I'm talking about. One feature of the house I loved, though, was a tiny second-floor balcony. Balcony might be generous. It was more like a ledge. There wasn't even space for a chair, but I didn't mind. After work, I'd step out there, light a cigarette, and let the day fade away. Smoking inside wasn't an option. I hated the lingering smell, so this spot quickly became my retreat. The neighborhood itself was typical suburban. Rows of identical houses with backyards fenced off like postage stamps. From my balcony, I could see into the yards of the houses behind mine. It was all pretty ordinary, except for one thing: my rear neighbor. Or rather, the absence of them. In the weeks since I'd moved in, I'd met most of the neighbors, but the house directly behind mine seemed unoccupied. I never saw anyone outside, never heard a lawnmower or voices. If it weren't for the occasional glow of a bedroom light at night, I'd have thought the place was abandoned. Curiosity eventually got the better of me. One Saturday afternoon, I walked around the block to introduce myself. The house looked worse up close. Neglected didn't even begin to cover it. The lawn was a jungle of weeds, the siding was peeling, and the windows were so grimy they looked painted over. There wasn't even a doorbell, so I knocked hard and waited. For a moment, I thought no one was home. But then I saw it, a flicker of movement behind one of the curtains. Someone was there, watching. I shifted awkwardly, unsure what to do. Before I could decide, the door slammed open, making me jump. An elderly woman stood in the doorway, staring at me. She was tiny, with grey hair pulled into a bun so tight it made her face look stretched. Her eyes were wrong, too wide, too intense. I forced a smile and introduced myself. She didn't respond right away, just kept staring. Finally, she muttered her name, Esther, and gave a faint, unsettling smile. No questions about my name, no welcome to the neighborhood, just silence and that piercing stare. Feeling more unnerved than I cared to admit, I made my excuses and left. That night, I went out to my balcony as usual, trying to shake off the encounter. But when I glanced toward her yard, my stomach dropped. She was standing there, dead center in the overgrown grass, staring up at my house. She didn't move or make a sound, just stood there, her face pale in the moonlight. I froze, unsure if I should wave, call out, or just pretend I hadn't seen her. My hands trembled as I went back inside, locking the door behind me. The next few days passed uneventfully. I told myself over and over that I must have imagined everything, or at least exaggerated. Life resumed its dull rhythm, and I started to believe it was over. But I was wrong. One night, just as I was beginning to drift off, I saw her again. This time, she was inside her house. From my window, I could see her silhouette moving erratically, her face pressing against one pane of glass, then the next. Her eyes were locked on me, her movements deliberate, as though she was playing a game. A twisted game where the rules were hers, and I was already losing. Days later, I discovered something unsettling in my backyard. A sock. Not mine, but a woman's sock, small and delicate, lying just a few steps from the fence. My stomach churned as the realization hit me. She'd been here, on my property. My sanctuary had been breached, and with it, my sense of security shattered like glass. That night, as I tried to shake off the unease, the doorbell rang. Once, twice, then again faster, more insistent, until it became a relentless cacophony. My nerves snapped. Frustration overtook fear, and I stormed to the door, ready to confront her. The moment I opened it, she lunged, a blur of fury and metal. A knife glinted in her hand, her face twisted with a rage so feral it hardly seemed human. "You stole my son!" she screamed, her voice a piercing wail that drowned out my thoughts. Panic surged through me, as I instinctively grabbed her wrist, struggling to disarm her. She was stronger than I expected, clawing and biting like a wild animal, her words a torrent of incoherent accusations. My hands trembled as I managed to pin her down, the knife clattering to the floor. My heart pounded in my chest as I fumbled for my phone, barely able to dial the police. The next 5 minutes stretched into an eternity. She writhed and screamed beneath me, her voice rising to a fever pitch, promising revenge, death, and the return of her son. When the police finally arrived, their presence felt like salvation. They pulled her away, her screams echoing in the night, and assured me she'd be placed in a psychiatric facility. But the nightmare didn't end there. For weeks, her words haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd return, knife in hand, to finish what she started. Less than a year later, I sold the house and moved far away, seeking peace that still eludes me. Even now, sitting on a balcony feels like a gamble. I can't relax without scanning the shadows, convinced she's out there, watching. And here's the twist. Weeks after the attack, I received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside there was a photo of me, taken from a distance, and another of her holding a baby. On the back of her photo, scrawled in shaky handwriting, was a single sentence. I found him. Did I steal her son? No. But someone did. If you enjoy unsettling tales like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. There's so much more lurking in the dark, waiting to be uncovered and shared with you.